Welcome back to the Debate Without Debate podcast, the number one podcast streaming from Asher and Joey's basement.
Word.
Today, we're going to talk about innovation that excites.
What does that mean to you?
I mean, there's a lot of innovation going on. The economy might be doing bad.
See, like for me, here's what initially what I thought with this whole pandemic is like stuff's gonna turn to a down point, right? Like we had the $2 trillion stimulus bill, and I was like, there has to be either some radical changes or we're all gonna get screwed over. So what I've noticed recently, at least from my perspective,
okay,
is that food delivery services, I think, have progressed the equivalent of 10 years in a span of 1 month.
All right, explain that. Elaborate.
From what I've seen, at least the scale at which it's taken, most people are still going to stores, but the number of people who are ordering food online through Grubhub or through other services has risen tremendously. What that means is that they've been able to take on more load. So within the span of a month, they've probably tripled their consumer base, and they're still able to handle it. So just that alone shows that there's some sort of progress being made.
That's an interesting point. What about, one thing that I noticed recently is some movies are coming out directly on demand. They're not even in theaters anymore because ain't nobody in theaters. Yeah. Like, who's pulling up to it? If you're pulling up to a theater right now, you're actually on something.
There's going to be some dudes that,
I mean, actually, on the low, it might be a strat to, like, go to the movie theater now because no one will be there.
Nah.
We don't recommend that.
No.
But, okay, so there are some movies that are coming out that are going strictly digital. Strictly digital.
Right.
I can't even speak. Strictly digital. So, one example. Will Smith, Martin Lawrence, Bad Boys 3. I don't know if it's good or not, but I do know that it just came out.
Really?
All the way digital. $20 though. Would you pay $20? Dude, honestly, you're watching it in your house. You're going to pay $20 for it?
Honestly, though, like most people, they don't go to the movie for the movie. They go for the experience. So
what is that experience?
So that experience is like, going with friends or having like, it's mostly a social event.
It's like a thing to do.
Yeah, so a lot of times the reason why there's such high premiums, at least before the virus, is because people want that experience. They want to buy the candy. They want to do all that sort of stuff. But now I find it interesting that people are still willing to spend the same amount of money without even going to the theaters. I think that after this, there's not going to be any theaters.
I mean, I think we've been talking about this for like ages because it doesn't make any sense why anyone still, like, you have to pay for rent, right, if you own a theater. I mean, Roslyn, which is the town that we live in, the theater that we had was about to shut down, and then someone bought it, and now it's continuing. So that just goes to show, like, these small, especially smaller theaters, like, they're just going to be crushed during this. And yes, that's terrible. Like, obviously, people are sustained because of that. People have jobs because of that. But the one upside is there's a lot more convenience now. Yes. Like, maybe movie production companies will just go straight to one of us, and instead of using, like, Netflix or whatever it may be, they just use on demand. What else have you noticed innovation-wise?
I've noticed, you see, like, I feel like the whole fitness community is going to make a huge 180-degree transformation.
Oh, yeah.
But
people are buying up all the equipment.
Yeah, but notice, like, the equipment is not accessible right now.
Yeah.
So there's two ways in which they could go. This is the fork in the road. Either A, they say we're going to deal with the same stock loads that we have, and we're just going to have minimal stocks. Stocks in terms of like plates and dumbbells and stuff like that, or they will increase their production while at the same time having less people working in their factory. So they're gonna have to have some crazy sort of optimization, some like some straight up Taylorism sort of thing.
So I was thinking about in Amazon's case, because Amazon, I think it's really interesting the fact that while there's a crisis happening right now, they're hiring more people because there's so much pent-up demand for their stuff because no one can go out anymore. So it's like they have to hire, I think it was close to 100,000 more people, part-time and full-time workers during this time to meet needs. And they do a similar thing during Christmas time, anytime that they have like a ton of their products departing from their warehouses. But now I was listening to someone talk the other day, and they were like, they're going to strongly consider more automated functions. And they already have a lot of automation in Amazon's factories. Like, they are the leading competitor. I mean, that's why Jeff Bezos is the richest man in the world. But they're going to consider automation that much more. And this just this possibly can accelerate the whole process of automation. People, there's like an Oxford study. I remember we looked at this once. It said like by 2050, like 50% of the jobs will be automated away. Some like crazy statistic.
Yang was
like
right. That's crazy.
Yang is on TV talking about UBI again. Like he's a CNN correspondent.
But do you think
now.
that works? Like, given the innovation that we have, do you think that a UBI is like a long-term solution?
I don't think so either. I think it prolongs the issue, and I think it accelerates automation even more. And that's why I'm saying right now we're basically getting a basic income to every single person who doesn't make above $100,000, right? Like they're getting paychecks from the government.
Yeah.
The problem with that is it's a benefit on the one side. Where people aren't going to work. They don't have to go to work, so they can stay home, which is what we need right now. But the downside of that is people are hopping on this, and what happens when they have to go back to work, what happens when hopefully all of this ends one day and people are now on benefits, unemployment benefits, for example, and they get much more money from that in comparison to companies maintaining their jobs and getting loans from the government. That stuff's all incredibly interesting. Policy making side, I don't know. Anyway, another example that I noticed related to fitness. SoulCycle just rolled out a bike option.
Well, also they're doing online class.
I mean, of course, they're live streaming a ton of
stuff. The thing with these large scale companies, these quote unquote big box companies for fitness or for healthcare or whatever, is that some of them, I'm not saying all of them, have figured out a way to still maximize profits regardless of the situation which they're in. So, for instance, car manufacturers or Rogue Fitness or certain companies, they've easily transitioned to changing their product lineup. So now they're making stuff for the government. They're getting paid for it. They're not doing it for free. They're getting paid for that sort of service. So making the face masks, making the face shields, all that sort of stuff, they've easily transferred the products which they've created to something that's sustainable for the time. I think that's real business savviness, if you want to define it like that.
I mean, some of that is enforced by the government because of the Defense Production Act.
Well, it's not like, is it really? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how it works. For example, General Motors, Donald Trump's been talking a lot and tweeting a lot. But the whole point of that is he has mandated a mandate that you must produce X amount of face masks, ventilators, whatever it may be, and he's accelerated the process. So regardless of the fact, in normal situations, right, they would be like, I can't create this in the same timeline.
Then again, certain companies are willingly going into this. They're not being forced. There wasn't any sort of warrant that Trump gave out to these companies, like for instance, Rogue Fitness, from my understanding.
Can you explain the Rogue Fitness stuff? Because I have no clue what they're doing. They
usually make bumpers and barbells and stuff like that. Basic gym equipment, which you have it, I don't know, Lifetime Fitnesses or Planet Fitness or whatever. All that sort of stuff is made generally by Rogue. Okay. But with the whole coronavirus thing, they stopped selling product, which is kind of angered me because I was trying to buy
Joey's bro body. It was hey man, I need these equipment.
Yeah, I was like, yo man, you can't tell me I'm not gonna be lifting anything for I don't know 3 months.
Yeah,
but they basically transferred their inventory to primarily trying to help out the whole pandemic. So they're from my understanding, they're making face shields and stuff like that, which they can make in their factories. I mean, they have the machines to do stuff like that. So I just find it interesting how I don't think that they're doing it out of the sheer will of their heart, because I don't think that any company's like that. But I think that they're
I mean, I have to say a lot of companies have stepped up.
Yeah, but you think that their sole there's no way that their sole
listen,
purpose.
It's good press for them too. Think about it. They're talking about these companies. You're reading articles. I don't know if you knew before that Rogue Fitness creates everything.
But that's what I'm saying. It's not the sole objective of them. Their objective is from a company standpoint to get their name out there, because name recognition is bigger than any monetary gain which they can make.
I think the deeper question, the ethical question is, do we care? Ultimately, they're providing a good for this country as a whole. Yes, they get some marketing from it. Yes, they probably get more sales from it as a result. Do we honestly, is that a bad thing? I don't necessarily know. I think that's kind of how the game works. You try and get press whatever ways you can. That's how marketing
Does it
works.
matter? I don't think that it.
I agree.
I think that they're doing a commendable action regardless of their perspective.
The
regardless
other question,
if they're trying to make money.
The other question, this is a total side tangent, but how has your experience and e-education been so far? E-learning.
That's what I've noticed too. Like I don't think that originally Zoom would have had the bandwidth to cater to a whole sect of American education.
I can only imagine their systems.
Yeah, so
must
their
be
systems are
overloaded
probably
like
they probably
crazy.
had to. I don't know the computer like specifics, but they probably had to get like hundreds of thousands of servers just in their warehouse just to accommodate for that. But I think that like this whole process has developed what we think we can do with technology. In short, from the way that we live our lives in terms of getting food, getting water, interacting with friends, going to school, it seems like it's almost been seamless. Sure, there's been some road bumps, but
Sure.
the transition and the ability, knowing that we have the capability to do that sort of stuff is pretty crazy. And I never expected, no one ever expected this sort of thing to happen. But just knowing that certain companies or certain organizations are able to transfer their skill base to accommodate to the American people is super impressive.
I mean, what do you think the long-term effects of e-learning is going to be? Do you think more universities, more schools are going to use it as a viable option?
I know that previously most universities, well, not most, but usually like community colleges and even like Ivy League schools, even to that extent, they've had e-versions of classes. For instance, Stanford uploads every single one of their lectures on their page.
Yeah.
So
I know there's like this Harvard lecture that's like super popular.
Yeah,
It always
the
pops up in my
comp sci
feed.
one, the comp
Yes,
sci
like,
one.
and he's just like doing math, and like I'll
Algorithms,
watch it, and I'm like, I have no clue what this dude is saying, but it's Harvard, so like maybe I'll learn something.
Yeah, but I think that I don't think that I'm gonna go to school the same way after this, to the same capacity.
I don't think anyone will.
I think that there's gonna be completely different protocols. That's just me though.
That's true. All right, ultimate takeaway. What is all of this doing? What is the coronavirus doing, bro?
It's making you think about what the future is gonna be like. Since
I mean, that's true.
You know, with at least from my understanding, I've never had something like this happen in my life before. So having that basic idea of like not knowing, well, what's going to happen tomorrow, what the numbers are going to be tomorrow, what the statistics are going to be tomorrow, who's going to get sick, who's not going to get sick, makes you think about bigger questions, existential questions like what is our purpose, what are we doing? And I think that those existential questions at a baseline drive us towards progression. That's why I think out of any depression, recession, whatever you want to call it, there will be super high rates of innovation and economic growth. But I think that the key thing is innovation, because the only thing that drives the economy, at least from my perspective, is innovation. If people don't innovate, the economy stays stagnant.
Well, folks got to get creative now, and they've been doing it, and props to everyone who's been doing it. I'm sure many of you are working on new projects that might be the next big thing. You never know. It's incredible to see even their posts all over LinkedIn right now of like companies that started during 2008 and 2009 during the recession. I believe one of them is Airbnb, and they have totally disrupted the market of hotels and that type of industry. And the same, I imagine, will happen now. The question of, ventilators, how will we produce that? I'm sure that will be totally disrupted in the way that we produce it. And what I ultimately think this is making people think about is their supplies, right? How do you get one thing to the next place when potentially some countries shut down? And that's causing a ton of creativity, and ultimately I think it's going to improve our economy overall. There might be some pain short term, long term growth. That's just my expectation. That's my hope, at least. But that's all from us from the DWD podcast for today. A little bit of a different episode from Joey and I. Let us know if you enjoyed it, and hit us up on any of our socials, which are always linked in the description of this episode. We will see you all when we see you. Talk to you soon.
Peace.